I'm Harvinder Singh. I'm a shoulder and elbow surgeon from Leicester, and the topic we are going to discuss today is research, clinical or otherwise. I've got very distinguished faculty here with me. I've got Professor Bridget Scammell, who is a professor of orthopedics and a consultant orthopedic surgeon. She's a dean and head of School of Medicine at University of Nottingham, and she's the first woman in the UK to be a professor of orthopedics in 2010. I've also got Mr. Subodh Deshmukh. I should call Professor Subodh Deshmukh, who's a consultant orthopedic surgeon at Royal Orthopedic Hospital in Birmingham. He specializes in hand and upper limb surgery, but as you will hear, he's got a lot of patents, and he's a professor at Ashton University in Birmingham. So we'll start off with Professor Scammell. We're going to ask, this is related to the trainees and, what opportunity they get to get involved in research.
So thank you for asking me that, because obviously I have a lot of trainees who get involved in research, as Subu would as well. So I think there are lots of avenues, aren't there, for all of us to get involved in research, and it's a really important thing to do because we know that by and large it improves patients' outcomes. So I guess the starting point usually is when you're an undergraduate. If you show interest, you might want to attend medical school, for example, that does an intercalated degree so that you can do some research at that point. But there are also opportunities through the societies that medical students have to get involved in research. And those are very active in a lot of medical schools. So once you get to be, I think the seeds are sown then, whilst you're at medical school, and you can of course apply as a trainee to become a academic foundation trainee, so that when you're doing your FY1 and FY2 posts, that you choose rotations that have that 4-month academic component in it. And that can be quite a useful time depending on your choice of centre and who you, if you like, strike it lucky with to be paired up with in terms of supervision. I think that can be a very fruitful way to start doing research. And then again, there are the academic training programs, so the ACF program, and then finally the ACL programs. But they're not for everybody, those programs, and not everybody wants to take 3 years out to do a PhD. So if you don't want to do that and you don't want to be a future academic, I think the ways to get involved are that you could take part in a portfolio study, so a multi-centre NIHR study, and you could recruit patients into it. You could perhaps be a local PI, even as a trainee. There are certainly opportunities for doing that. And I think that's a really good way of getting involved in research, because you will be in a funded study, part of a funded study that's likely to have gone through the NIHR assessment, rigorous assessment program. It will be involving a clinical trials unit, and just by way of being in a sort of tip-top research environment, almost by default, because of the nature of the clinical trial that you might get involved in. And so those, I think, are the principal ways that you could get involved. The other thing you can do, of course, is to you might just have the bright idea. Where do you go if you've got the bright idea? And Sue can tell us about the bright idea and what you do if you've invented something, an implement or anything that needs patents. But if you have a bright idea, if you want to compare A with B, I think the first place to do is to make sure that actually that hasn't been done before. So your librarian can help you to do that correct search. You might be lucky enough that it hasn't been done before, in which case I would take those ideas and speak to other like-minded people, speak to people in the Trust R&I, speak to people in the Research Design Service maybe, or in the if you're affiliated to a university, speak to the orthopedic department there. And then those ideas could be taken forward and worked up into a fully blown funded study. But that takes quite a long time to do, but it's well worth it if that's the question that you really want answering. And probably the best way of doing that, I think, is you've always got to be part of a team, and quite a big team, because of all the skills that are required. No one person can do that on their own. So I hope that was helpful.
Thank you. So if I can ask Subodh now to please, how do we get a research patent or any patent? What are the opportunities and what are the hurdles that we are likely to experience in such a journey?
Thank you, Harvinder. That's an interesting question. How do you get a patent? Well, I think all the orthopedic trainees need to understand that there are different types of patents available in the world. And certainly for an orthopedic surgeon, there are essentially two types of patents. One is a design patent and one is a utility patent. A design patent is the easiest one to get. For example, if you have a brilliant idea, you can just draw it on a piece of paper and submit it to the design and patent office in Cardiff. And they will do a good search for you. Obviously, it will cost you a few pounds. I think about £70 it costs. And they will ask you some interesting questions on, how to draw this diagram, because they require different views of the interesting idea. And they will do a little design patent for you, and you will get a nice little paper from them that this is now is a registered design patent, worldwide patent, and I think is functional for about 10 to 12 years. The difficulty is converting that design patent into a commercial idea. And I think that's where most design patents falter. And I'll admit straight away that I actually don't have a utility patent, which is a commercial idea. I have one which is in process, but it hasn't reached that commercial threshold. So once you talk about a utility patent, for example, you have a bright idea about say a knee replacement or a plate or something, and you want to ask a commercial company to make it, that's where the commercial views come into play. Is this something which the world will pick up and other things? And the patent lawyers come into play, and it is something which is quite a complex negotiations, or so quite a complex set of negotiations which the person has to undertake, and it is quite useful to get a university involved, because they have proper people who can help you to get a utility patent. So I think design patents are easier to get, but utility patents are much more difficult and extremely costly. I mean, to my knowledge, some of the patent lawyers which will give you a utility patent can charge you up to £1,000 an hour. So it is extremely expensive idea, and you need to be absolutely certain that your idea is something which can be commercialized. But that's what I would say about patents.
That's great. Thank you, Subodh. So if I could go back to Professor Scammell, having been unsuccessful in a few NIHR grants, I would like to know your experience of what do you think a successful NIHR grant application look like? I know it's not an easy answer, but what in your experiences,
So I have limited success, but I think you've just got to look at the bigger picture, haven't you? And it can take, I think, don't underestimate the time and the effort that it takes to get one of these grants. And they are a big team effort. And the expertise that you need to put into them is large, is what I would say to begin with. And there are various types of grants, of course. There's HDA grants, EMI grants, so HDA tends to look at one thing versus another. EMI grants tend to look at methodology or the underlying mechanism. And then there's research for patient benefit, again, which tend to look at or can look at pathways and ways that we approach healthcare, and can also be feasibility studies. So I think what you've got to have is not just the bright idea, you've got to demonstrate that you've got a proper research question and that's very carefully thought out and that hasn't been answered elsewhere. You've got to involve patients in the way that you design the study, and you need patients on your steering group who will advise you as to whether what you're doing is feasible. You obviously need to, go through the correct governance processes and get sponsorship, either through a university or through your trust, and you need ethical approval. But what you absolutely need to do is either work with a research design service or with a clinical trials unit. If you don't do that, you're doomed. You have to work with them. And what they will offer is suddenly there'll be an enormous amount of expertise available to you, which comes at a cost because that has to be factored into the grant that you're applying for. But it's really important that you tap into that expertise because we don't have it, but they have it. And they have a whole team who will help you formulate that research question. Usually when you first go and speak to either the research design service or your local clinical trials unit, you'll get sent away with a whole bunch of homework and told to come back another day. And that's fine because you hone down your research question. They'll help you with study design. They'll help you with where to go for funding. They'll help you with the statistics. They'll help you with, the key elements that you need to put together into it. They'll help you with the quality management systems that you require and the whole outline of how you're going to do your study. They'll even help you with disseminating the results and then archiving the data at the end. So they'll offer a complete package if you go to a clinical trials unit and do this. So I think the whole take-home message is this is a big team effort to get one of these big NIHR grants, and it just takes time. Good luck.
If I could now go to Subodh, please. Subodh, you partly answered this question, but I'd still like to take it. I have an idea to make a shiny new shoulder fixation plate. How do I take it forward? What do I have to do? Or what can I do?
Well, assuming that you have got a design patent on this particular plate and it is not a copy of an existing plate, then you have a chance. You have a chance. So the thing would be that this plate would have to be somehow manufactured by you or a company. You can either manufacture it as a metal plate or as a plastic plate, and you can take it through this so-called finite element analysis and make sure that this plate can stand the rigors of a standard plate. So your plate should be at least as good as, if not better, than the existing commercially available plate. And if your plate can stand that rigor in a computer or a simulated environment, then you can go into making it into a metal plate, or you can do what's called additive manufacturing. You can create a 3D printed additive manufactured metal plate and then go through another set of stress testing of this plate. So then engineering department or a mechanical engineering department or a metallurgy department in your local university can stress it to the limit to see how good it is. Once you've got that and you think that where it is as good or even better than the commercially available plate, then the next step would be to consider commercializing. Now, you could either get an industrial patent on that plate so no one can manufacture it, or you can go straight to an industry or a company which manufactures plate and then get an NDA, so-called as a so-called non-disclosure agreement with this company so that they can't manufacture it without your consent. And once you've got an NDA, then the company might consider manufacturing this plate because they might think, well, they don't have such a plate in their current portfolio and they might make some money from it. So it is all about making money. So that company will not manufacture the plate unless they have absolutely an absolute certainty that they will make money from it. You might then negotiate your deal or your cut in that implant. I will be honest with you, I have no such commercially available implant, as I said before. But there are certain steps which you have to take before you can commercialize your implant. So that's all I have to say. If that helps, I hope it helps.
Over to Amit. I think he's got a question for Professor Scammell.
So, hello there.
Hi.
Is Bridget Scammell there? I can't see
I'm here.
on screen. Ah, there you are. So, sorry,
I'm
just to
here.
introduce myself, I'm Professor Tolat. I'm one of the orthopedic surgeons in Kent, and I'm very pleased to see you here at our BIOS conference. Bridget, what I'd like to ask you is, we have quite a lot of trainees who are with us for short periods of time, particularly at the junior core training level. And one of the things that has been difficult is to actually encourage them to take up high quality projects, because they always go for the low fruit, so to say, and have something to progress their careers rather than actually concentrate and focus on some things that could be of more lasting change or more valuable research. Do you have some ideas on how that could be facilitated, say, through the CRN or any other local mechanisms to get them better involved? Thank you.
So thank you. To be honest, I've never thought about the CRN, and you clearly have. So perhaps we could share those ideas. But certainly, I think it behoves us as supposed research leaders to be able to not just encourage them to do high quality research, but also to facilitate that. And it might be that, you've got somebody who's with you for 6 months to a year, and they do part of a project, or they do the systematic review with others that allows the grant to go in, and so on and so forth. And systematic reviews, of course, we can publish if they're done properly. So that ticks that box, and it also teaches critical thinking skills. I think taking part in larger projects so that you don't think you have to do all of it, I think is really important for them. And kind of almost want to have that sort of pipeline of enthusing people to maybe take some time out if they want to do something that they can really own, rather than be part of a team doing team science, as it were. I think also societies play a part in this, specialist societies. I believe the Hand Society, for example, are very good at this, and they have a network which so have a network of like-minded souls where they can do team science, and also where they can tap into, if you like, that expertise to run multi-center studies. So I think those are the things that you need to set the groundwork, do the groundwork for them. And the CRN I hadn't thought about, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Bridget. I don't have any questions asked by the audience, so I'll ask one more question to Subodh. Despite being 4 and 5 year in a consultant, I was hoping my research interest would die down, but I still enjoy research. I would like to ask, what drives you to do research, Subodh? Why do you enjoy research? What is it that you get out of research?
That's a very interesting question. Well, I mean, I think there are two types of researches you can do. I mean, there's clinical research, and I do a fair amount of engineering lab-based research. And I think clinical research is interesting because it gives you ideas and gives you answers to your clinical questions, which you see every day in, day out. While engineering research is quite interesting because it gives you different satisfaction. You can have some bright ideas and you can have engineering students who will do that type of those projects for you. And once they do these projects, what really makes me happy is that when they go for their job interviews in different companies, most of the time these students are asked questions based on the projects. And if they've done a good project, and if that engineering student gets a good job offer and he writes an email to me, I really feel very nice that my project has been able to give him a good job in the real world. And that's generally for the undergraduate students. But for the master's students, it's slightly different because they generally have a fair idea of what goes on. And the master student will then use that project to get a PhD, or even if it's a PhD student, then he will go on to do a postdoc in that particular subject. And you can really answer a very good question if it's a good level master student. And you can then have sort of multi-departmental research. Currently, I've got a research idea which I'm running through the university, where myself as an orthopedic surgeon, we got metallurgy involved, we got chemical engineering, and we got mechanical engineering, 4 departments involved at the same time, and in a particular research idea. So, and if something comes out of it, I know it will take sometimes even 10 years. So I could be dead and buried by then, by the time something comes out of it. But at least I will see some fruits in the next few years. So these are the sort of things it makes you happy at the end of the day. So that drives me, I must say.
So hi, Subodh. I just wanted to. I don't have any questions for you. I just want to congratulate you on your dedication and commitment to doing this work, and also congratulations to you on your professorship as well. So well done.
Well, I
Thank
had
you.
that professorship for a few years, so
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it's almost expiring now. I need to do some more research.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any questions on the chat, so I'd like to draw this session to a close. I would like to thank Professor Bridget Scammell for taking the time out despite a busy day of interviewing, and Professor Subodh Deshmukh for taking the time out today to talk to us. And Amitullah, thank you so much.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
For a very
Bye-bye.
good session.